Ahoy, my friends, Ryder here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys a dungeon ranking guide for the Dungeon Ranking Robio. It is going to be a quick guide. I will be walking you guys through everything that I am doing in this dungeon ranking. Before we get into it, I will say that this dungeon ranking is heavily catered to the Dragon Quest collaboration banners, so much so to the point that I feel like it loses some of the fun, unfortunately. Fortunately, however, I mean, in my first run, I thought I wasn't even going to get an S plus clear, because I'll show you guys the team I'm using. I'm literally using Cloud from back in the day, Murasame Day 1. So it's nice to see that you still can actually clear, you can still get a decent ranking without any of these banners actually, which is nice to see. As you guys can see here, I am rank 34 with a high score of 4.2 million. This is definitely improvable. This is not like a fully toned down, tempered run. This is just the best I'm going for. I'm not really trying to, I'm just going for the 150 ranking and all the score rewards, which as you guys can see are complete. You just need a 4 million score. So that being said, let's get into it. So we're just going to go to the EX right here. I'm going to briefly run you guys through the bosses. So we are going to be fighting the Dark Army General first, and then Bahamut, then the Airbuster plus the 2 grenade combatants, the Galambalo Arcana, and then lastly Leviathan. As you guys can see here, lightning and fire are going to be the of choice elements. So, you know, running Cloud and Zack from the collaboration will work fantastically. Zack and Sephiroth will also work fantastically. There's a lot of options here. For sigils, we're going to have X and circle on every single character. Although some sigil breaks we may just kill instead, but you'll see that these fights are definitely longer. We're definitely lacking the DPS that you would be getting from these collaboration events. So let's take a look at the actual team here. So here we have Cloud. He's our main DPS. He's going to be rocking the Anniversary costume, Judgment Bolt from Ramuh, Murasame at OB10, and then also we're going to be rocking the Mystic Sword right here. This is a magic-based sword, so make sure when you brand it, you switch it over to physical attack if you're running this. I didn't really change too many of my brands, to be honest. I just did like a few on Lucia and a couple on Cloud, and the others I just left. For the materias here, guys, the only thing that's really going to be important if you're running this same setup, but it can be done in a lot of different ways. This dungeon ranking can be cleared. You know, Janelle has a great video running Tifa, so you know if you guys don't want to use Cloud, I'd say Cloud is probably the lowest DPS option, so it can only really get better from here. But the materia options that you guys are going to want, we're going to have a Cure All on Aerith in the 3rd slot since she doesn't have a main healing weapon equipped. We're going to have X and Circle Sigils on every single character. So one thing to note is that, let me get back here. Like I put my X sigil on a Fire Blow for Cloud so that he can also do fire damage, right? And then I also put my X sigil for Lucia on a Thundara Blow so that she can also do damage outside of her element, because Lucia will be basically focusing fire DPS, Cloud will be basically focusing lightning DPS. Lucia will be here for the enfeeble right here for the magic attack or magic defense and physical defense break, mostly basically the physical defense break for Cloud. And then we have the Mystic Sword for the physical attack, magic attack break as well, which you are going to need in these fights, guys. So originally I was bringing the Lock Sword, but I was just dying in later fights. So this is going to be the setup right here. For Aerith, I didn't really worry about the elements. But yeah, you're going to want X and Circle Sigils on every character. And then for Cloud's 3rd, I just slotted a Lightning Potency Materia. For Lucia's 3rd, I slotted a Fire Potency Materia. And for Aerith's 3rd, we have the Cure All there. For the summons right here, I have the Crimson Flare on Aerith, so she's going to support Lucia because Lucia is the weaker DPS between the two. We're going to be running the Bahamut costume right here, the Terra's Rod for the Fire, Lightning, and Peril, the Comrade Wand for the magic defense up plus the physical attack boost, Princess Guard of course, and then lastly Lucia with her amazing limited costume, the new weapon right here, it's called the Shinra Ceremonial Rifle for the enfeeble, and yeah, that's going to basically sum up our front end of the build. Let's take a look at the back end right here. Alright. Before we get into it, let's take a look at the fits chosen for this battle, which I think is something that I don't really ever talk about in guides, but I feel like I always choose exactly like the fit that I want to use for whatever it is. So Cloud, we're going OG Murasame everything, right? Murasame costume, Murasame blade. For Aerith, we have the New Year's costume, which I've always thought is beautiful. Plus this weapon right here, I don't even know what it is, the Sea Dragon Staff, which I thought just looked sick with it. And then lastly, we have Lucia just decked out in exactly what she should be wearing right here. All right, so let's take a look at the actual stats for everyone. So for Cloud, we have 12.5k HP, 12.8k physical attack, 185 physical defense, 118 magic defense. We are running Kate Sith's Lightning Imperil weapon right here. We are also running this axe right here, and man, I always forget the names of these. The broadsword axis. We also have the shock buster, and we also have the Cool Cat's megaphone for Cloud. Going over to Aerith, she's sitting at 25k HP. She's got 165 physical defense, 171 magic defense, and 4.7k healing. All of her materias are spec'd towards healing. Then we have Sid's Rocket Launch, the Centipede, and then Tifa's 1.5 anniversary weapon for the physical attack all. And then for Lucia, she's sitting at 17k HP, 11.7k physical attack, 235 physical defense, 125 magic defense. And then we have Angeal's Volcanic Heat. We have Angeal's Greatsword of the Worthy for the all attack and the physical defense right here. And then we have Sephiroth's Radiant Edge for the 62/39 physical attack fire potency. That's basically going to conclude the team here, guys. So that being said, let's get into the battle. Alright guys, so here we are going into the dungeon ranking. At the start, we're going to run up here. Since Cloud is really not that strong as a DPS in this dungeon ranking, I'm actually going to drop a Thundara cocktail on him for the first fight, because this boss cannot have its physical defense broken. Alright, so we're just going to go into this fight. If it ever loads. Alright, here we go. And Dark Lantern, let's go. Alright, so at the beginning, I'm just going to force stream with Cloud. We're going to go back to Aerith. Alright. The trick is to get off a Riot Blade, like right as the boss summons his two allies right here. Alright, so here we go. There it is. And there's the... Alright, switching over. So we're going to take out the two allies right here as soon as possible. Alright, so the goal is basically take out the allies and then break the bar of the boss right here. Alright, we're just going to kill him with a little Thundara blow right there. Switch over to the other one. Alright, here we go, almost there. Alright, getting close, getting close. Alright, once we drop this and switch back to the boss, I'm actually going to use my sigils right here so that we can actually break this bar. It's going to be really close, guys. It's always super close. Alright, there you have it, going into the Spiritual Harmony. And we are just going to start taking down this boss. We're going to get off the Enfeeble on him right here. Alright, here we go. And now we're just going to be slowly whittling him down. A lot of these fights are pretty slow. If you don't have the collaboration DPSs, it definitely, like, you definitely take a hit. The fights seem... Normally, dungeon ranking battles feel like they move super fast. So this is, to me, like, the slowest I've ever felt inside a dungeon ranking. But I am glad that you can still clear it and get, like, a good majority of the rewards. I think that's a positive thing overall. Alright, so almost there. We're just going to keep on taking this guy down little by little. I'm going to be saving my ultimate Braver for a later time in the fight. It's going to be against these three ads that are super annoying. If you guys know which ones I'm talking about, then you know which ones I'm talking about. Alright, we'll drop Kira. We'll switch over to Cloud. And we're going to take him out right here. Alright, perfect. Alright, so that's going to be the first one down. Alright, and we're just going to be moving forward from here. That one's pretty slow. Bahamut's, like I would say, actually feels easier than that guy. We're shooting for around 100k per battle, right? I'm guessing the top is around 125 if you're super strong. But 100 is what we're going to be shooting for. All right, here we go. All right, so the first one, we're going to take the middle one right here. Score boost, fire potency, single target ability potency right here. All right, the fire potency will help boost Lucia up, especially for taking down that Gallen-Balor Arcana later on. All right, we are going to get this cottage, and we're just going to go straight into the fight against Pommet right here. All right, here we go. Alright, so at the beginning, we're just going to hold off until he starts charging his Mega Flare. Boom. Counter with Spiritual Harmony. We're going to do that twice. Cloud is going to start breaking Bahamut's magic attack right here. Alright, so our magic defense is now stacked through the roof. We are pretty much good to go. And now we got the Enfeeble. We're going to get one of these and switch over to Aerith. Alright, sweet. So as you can see, Mega Flare basically did, like, no damage. There is definitely some lag, which, as you guys are seeing right here, but Dungeon Ranking kind of always has lag, unfortunately. Alright, so now we're just going to be slowly whittling this dude down. I'm going to save the summons. Do not use them here. I use them to take out the next batch of ads, which are super, super freaking annoying. It's actually the first thing that actually killed me in this dungeon were the ads, not even the bosses themselves, which is honestly pretty surprising, I would say. Alright, so we got our buffs about to wear off. We're going to re-jump those back on. Alright, and for this, you can either just kill him or break the sigils. I find that, like, just breaking the sigils kind of goes faster, plus you get a damage boost, which will raise your score. Alright, here we go. I'm just going to wait for Lucia, and we are good. There's the damage bonus plus 90%, and Bahamut goes down. Alright, sweet. Alright, so basically we are 2 out of 5 down, looking pretty good. We'll see what our score is right here for the second one. Alright, let's freaking go. 103,000. Alright, so like I said, we're shooting for around 100,000 each time, so that was solid. Alright, let's go. Alright, so for the next one right here, we're actually going to choose the middle one right here, alright? Physical attack up tier. This is only going to work for obviously a physical team, but no, we are not going to return to the title screen. Alright, so, crap, I forgot to use the buffs. Typically I would use a Thundara cocktail and a Fire cocktail before these bosses right here, because they're really annoying, but we are going to immediately start the fight with the summons, guys, before they boost all their defenses. Alright, super helpful in this fight. They boost all their defenses, they boost all their attack, they do all this stuff. So the idea is to kill them as fast as possible, alright? And their buffs have to be actually casted at the beginning of the fight. So if you go into it casting the summons, then you can do a lot of damage right here. Right, you aren't seeing that much damage yet until the Thunderbolt right here, or the Judgment Bolt. Alright, boom. Alright, so the Bloody Worm is almost dead. We're going to take that out right away. Alright, then we're going to go over to the Blue Goo right here. We're going to take that out right away. Alright, and then we're going to switch over to the Sahagin right here. Alright, here we go. Looking good. Here comes Lucia. Alright, so the goal is to take him out before his attack. And boom. That is how I found is the easiest way to take out those ads. It's unfortunate that we're dropping summons for them, but it is what it is. It does make the fight so much easier if you guys handle it like that. Plus, we don't really need the summons up until this point, so it is okay to drop them. Alright, now that we have this, alright, let's go down. Alright, we're going to come back over here to this boss. Okay, I am going to... I originally used a Fire Cocktail and a Thundara Cocktail before those enemies, but I guess we actually don't need it. And I'm pretty sure we actually don't need it in this fight. I will drop a Thunder Cocktail on Cloud just to kill the Air Buster a little bit faster. But other than that, I think we're pretty good. Alright, so we're looking pretty good on overall HP. Okay, so going into this fight, we're going to take out the ads first and then focus on the Airbuster. Make sure that before you start doing damage, you get off the Imperil with Aerith. Her AoE Imperil is actually so clutch, guys. It's so clutch. Alright, so boom, going to switch over to Lucia. Alright, and we're going to go 1 and 2. Alright, take that out. Again, 1 and 2. And boom. Alright, so there we go. We didn't quite get the chance to take out the second grenade combatant before the first attack. That's what you're going for. But it's going to be alright in the end, I would say. Alright, here we go. Going to go for the cure. Switch over to Lucia. Alright, we're going to Night Glint on Airbuster and then Napalm Assault. Switch back to Cloud, and we are going to begin the long, slow process of slowly taking down these bosses with low DPS characters. Alright, so here we go. Beautiful. As soon as he starts to charge something else, we're going to drop this Limit Break right here. Okay, here we go. We're doing it as soon as possible so that Cloud starts charging it back up again. Alright, this will also buy us a lot of time in this fight overall, like hitting him with the Limit Break, and even still it didn't do that much damage, as you guys could see. Okay, here we go. Alright, and let's block the big bomber. Alright, perfect. We're going to Kira. We're going to follow with Jubilation, and we are going to burn this dude down to the ground, get the Spiritual Harmony back, and let's go. Alright, Cloud has already recharged almost half of his summon, which is great. Okay, here we go. Almost there, guys, almost there. Alright, close, close, close. Hopefully we get the kill right here. And we do. Alright, perfect. Slow battles, guys, but it is what it is. At least you can get the 4 million points, you can get the score rewards, and if you're lucky, you know, you can make it into the top 150 for the rewards, which I think is basically good enough for these. So Airbuster is typically my weakest score. It's just hard for me to get a lot of damage against him. But it is what it is. It's alright if it drops a little bit right there. Okay, so here we go. Now we're looking at the next set. So I'm going to go for the defense one right here because we're going against the Galambalor Akana. We have no physical defense buffing weapon, which I think the ideal team would have. This will also raise Lucia's fire potency, give us lightning resist, and also give us a magic defense down resist. So unless you want to go for a more, you know, DPS approach for a higher score, these could work, but I'm going to take these just for safekeeping. Alright, we'll come up here, we'll get this cottage, I believe. 2 tents. Then we're going to run all the way down to the bottom right here. We're going to trigger these cactuars for a Mega Elixir. Alright. Because, you know, just having that Mega Elixir in your inventory at the end of it will significantly boost your overall score. Alright, but the goal right here is to take out these cactuars like as fast as possible. I'm going to drop the attacker tuning right here, just because Cloud started off with less ATB, and you really kind of need to like do some damage to these guys, or else they'll hit you with the 10,000 needles. And as you can see, Cloud would not survive that right now, so I definitely want to take these guys out as fast as possible. Alright, here we go. Perfect. Alright. Boom, there's Lucia, then Cloud. The Cactuar will start casting the 10,000 needles, but it's over. Perfect. Alright, so 3 Cactuars are down. You just got to be careful. They can really hit you pretty hard there. Alright, and as you guys can see, we haven't used any healing items. So up until this point, the idea is to not use any healing items at all. We just used a couple DPS cocktails, but that's really it. There is the Mega Elixir. Alright, now we're going to go up here. We're going to face the Galambalor Akana. Before we go into this fight, I am going to drop a fire cocktail on Lucia and also a Power Jelly on Lucia. She's going to be the main DPS against Galambalor Akana. And we are also going to drop a Cottage to take everyone back up to full health. And that should last all the way through the final fight. So here we are going into the last fight before the final boss. Typically in the dungeon ranking, you're so buffed up by then that the final boss is typically chill, and that is also the case in this one right here. Always remember to block at the beginning of a fight with a Galambalor. So 3, 2, 1, boom, we're going to block. He's going to charge. Beautiful. Counter with Spiritual Harmony. Alright, try to get the lag to not destroy us. Alright, and here we go. And now he's going into his Sigil phase. This one is not so bad. You shouldn't have to drop your overspeed for this. And if you're pretty prepared for it, as you can see, we're kind of just eating through it. You should be able to get the boss pretty debuffed, actually, by the end. So I'm going to drop another Night Glint right here. Alright, Aerith is going to Spiritual Harmony. We're still just slowly taking him down. I'll Force Stream one more time. Back to Lucia. I think he's immune to physical and magic defense breaks. Alright, and here we go. Boom, we're going to double Force Stream with Cloud. Back to Lucia. Alright, and we're just going to start doing as much damage as we can. Alright, so I'm actually going to go into the overspeed for Lucia. And we're just going to start chipping away at this dude's health. Cloud is not really going to hold up very well in the damage here, but it's going to be okay. Alright, here we go. We're going to lower his attack right here. Make sure that we have a magic defense buff while continuing to do damage. Alright, and then I'm also going to drop the limit breaks right here. I'm going to keep the Judgment Bolt. That's not really going to do that much damage against him, and it's what we're going to use against Leviathan in the next battle. Alright, so there's the Galambalor at half health and a little bit more. Alright, perfect. Now we're just going to slowly be taking this dude down. Switch over, we'll block the Jolt. Alright, here we go. Alright, perfect. Alright, so Aerith got stunned. We're just going to keep on doing damage with Cloud and Lucia. And the goal is going to be to kill him before this attack right here. So we need to get off the Imperil. And perfect. Alright, so there goes the Galambalor Arcana. We are now safely through what I would say is the harder part of the dungeon ranking. I think it just kind of like gets... Honestly, I think the ads are the hardest part of this entire dungeon ranking, which is pretty surprising. And a little bit unfortunate, I think, because it just like makes the bosses seem weaker. Alright, so for the last one, we're going to take the middle run right here, Enhanced Physical Attack. For the Lightning Potency, the Lightning Resist here down, which is going to make Leviathan pretty much a cakewalk. Alright, so once we take that, we're going to run back all the way to near the beginning. Alright, we're going to come up here. And we are going to stop. I'll drop one Thundara Cocktail on Cloud. Alright, and then we are pretty much good to go. You could Mega Elixir here, but honestly you don't really need it. So we're just going to go straight into this battle and take out this boss as fast as possible. And that should be it for the dungeon ranking, guys. So let's see how fast we can get this one done. Leviathan is definitely easier, especially with that last trance ability. Alright, perfect. He does have a slightly different mechanic than what he would normally have, though, I will say. Alright, here we go. I'm going to block his first Tidal Roar. Alright, now we're going to go for the Sigil Break right here. Okay, which as you can see is going to be very chill. We're going to break it super fast. Alright, here we go. Still going for the Imperils right here. Lucia will go for the Enfeeble, and Cloud is just going to start doing mass damage. We're going to drop all the overspeeds right here. Alright, and we're just gonna go absolutely freaking ham on this boss. Okay, and maybe in one more we're gonna drop the summons. Boom, boom, and that is it. Alright, so that's gonna basically wrap up this dungeon ranking, guys. Not really my favorite, especially the fact that you kind of want 2 collab weapons for this dungeon ranking, which I think is a bit rough. The saving grace is that you still can score decently well. You can get all the rewards. I'm hoping you can stay within the 150 ranking, and especially if you improve on this team, which there's a lot to improve on, guys, then you can definitely make top 150 or top 100 for sure. I think in the top 50, though, it's going to be a bit tough unless you have at least one of those new collaboration weapons or someone's running a different kind of build that I couldn't think of. Alright, but that being said, let's check our score here. I think my previous high was 4.2 million. So we'll see what we got here. Alright, so 4 million right here. That's just enough for the score reward. So, you know, you just got to kind of go in there and figure out where you can make improvements. You know, check your brands, check your pathing in the game, check other videos by other content creators, you know, that put up with different characters if you want to run Tifa or something like that. Like I said, Janelle has a great video. But other than that, guys, that's going to basically conclude the dungeon ranking. I've only actually run this one 3 times, and I don't plan on running it anymore. My ranking is still 34th with a high score of 4.22k right here. I've gotten all the score rewards, and yeah, that's pretty much good for me. I'm hoping that this will stay in the top 150. I think that there's a good chance that it will. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, this quick guide. I hope it got you guys through it. If you have any questions, be sure to drop a comment below. Myself or other amazing people in the community will always answer, and I'm grateful for everyone. So if you guys enjoyed this video today, please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more FF7 Ever Crisis content. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.